Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Pochettino's opening press conference for the US men's national team. We'll be previewing the North London derby as Arsenal take on Tottenham. We'll do a full Premier League match day 4 preview. We'll do a reaction to a early 2026 World Cup power ranking that I saw. It was an interesting power ranking there. And then make sure you stick around for the end of the show while I'll be giving you my reactions to some of the top headlines going on in the football world. Before we start off though, I'd like to ask that you if you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energy and insights, whether it's a quick comment, a full question, or your opinion you just have to share. Don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we really appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the GSMCpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We start off though with reacting to Mauricio Pochettino's opening press conference. We obviously know the big talk in the soccer world on this side of the hemisphere is the Mauricio Pochettino recent addition to the U.S. men's national team. Ever since it was, reported by journalists that this is happening, all the way till now, where yesterday it was officially, or now a few days now, it was officially announced, and then today he was introduced in an introductory press conference as the USMNT head coach. It was in New York City, which is like the big time now. They did it in New York City, the press conference, and it was very enthusiastic. We had some good quotes, and it was very, very interesting. He's arriving with some confidence, with some personality, and for me, it was very, very interesting to see. I watched the whole press conference actually. I was very looking forward to it. He discussed Emma Hayes and her progress as well. This is a guy that seemed very, well in tune with what's going on amongst U.S. soccer. He said, "I am really happy to be here. I think it's an amazing project and challenge that we have ahead. I'm so excited. I'm so happy." And when he was asked about players and which players have a leg up in terms of getting called up, every player now has the door open. If they perform, we are going to be there watching. When he discussed the play style of the team, he said, "We are flexible. We're a coaching staff that wants to play good football to convince our fans to join us. The aesthetic is important. We want to play nice football, attacking football." When he discussed about Emma Hayes, he said, "We have Emma, for me, the best coach. I want to say hello, Emma. I don't know if you're here or not." And then when he discussed on his aspirations to be the USMNT coach, he says, "I think it is about creating something special. That is the most important thing. We are here because we want to win. We are a very successful coaching staff." And then when he was discussing about future aspirations, he said, "We need to believe we can." This is the big quote. "We need to believe we can win. Not win just the game, but to win the World Cup. We want players to arrive on day one thinking big." So yeah, that's the big comment. There was also some other interesting ones when he discussed potentially living in the US. He said, "The idea is to live here in the US, but of course for different reasons we're going to be between Europe and the USA for watching players." And then when discussing the priority of the preparations in the coming years. He said the priority is going to be to arrive in the best condition for the World Cup. That is the principal objective now. And then when he was asked, when he was discussing why he took the USMNT job, he said, if you say to me, I need to pick only one sentence here, one word, because we believe. In discussing about motivating the team, he said, belief for me is a word that is so powerful. You can have enormous talent and you can be clever. In football, you need to believe. Believe that all is possible. We will find a way to believe all together, and I think we can for sure. We will achieve. So it was a very positive, up-moving press conference. Very, very confident, well thought out. But the big quote that everyone is talking about is, well, obviously discussing, they need to believe that they can win the World Cup, not just win a game, but win the whole World Cup. Which is, that's an interesting comment there. You go back to 2014 World Cup. About 6 months or so before the World Cup, when Jurgen Klinsmann was speaking to AP, it was about December or so, he said the U.S. cannot realistically look at competing for a World Cup. It's just not realistic. And then, when he was asked about this about a week before the World Cup began in press conference actually in Brazil, he doubled down on those comments, saying it's just not realistic for us to think about a World Cup. We'll worry about the group. We're in the group of death, because you remember they were in the group with Ghana, Germany, and Portugal. We'll win the group. This is what he said. We'll win the group of. We'll compete in the group of death, but if we can get out of that group, then we're not backing down against anybody. And there was some criticism that he faced. Some big time soccer media in the American soccer. We know the biggest one, right? Alexi Lawless back then, even now. He was very critical of Jurgen Klinsmann on those comments because of the U.S. Sort of mentality, the fan base that they have, their chant, "I believe we can win." But it's also, you need a sense of realism, especially as a manager, you need a way to stew the pressure off the players, and you want to see a little bit of a path to make it as simple as you can. And you'll have expectations to win the World Cup. It makes the pressure really, really mount early on. And let's say in the early stages, this U.S. men's national team is really poor under Pochettino. Well, the pressure is going to mount even more because of these comments saying we need to believe not only that we're going to go in the World Cup and win a game, but we're going to go and win the World Cup. Now, if you say, we'll take it one step at a time, blah, blah, blah. If you sort of dance your way around that and you don't really make those sort of comments, then, then you see a little bit of a path and you make it a little bit more smooth for the national team to go through struggles and all that. But at the same time, I don't mind what he said at all. There's no guarantee here. This is not like Dorvial Jr. coming out for the Brazilian national team saying, we're going to be in the final of the World Cup. I guarantee. Now that's just, that's just crazy. That's just crazy talk. And see, that is the kind of talk that can get you in real trouble, especially with Brazil in their next international window. They drop, points to Chile or Peru, then, it's not only going to it's not going to put Brazil in big, big trouble trying to qualify for the World Cup, but it's going to put Dorvial job jeopardy, really, really big trouble. And comments like that, it adds more to adds more pressure on top of that, which is, what you're trying to do as a manager is you're trying to motivate. You're trying to motivate your players. You're trying to set up the team tactically to be flexible, to be, if you want to make them, aesthetic, as he said, good attacking football, whatever it is, you want to make them very tactically, a tactically adaptable team, a tactically flexible team, a team that has good tactics. that play good football. You want to manage in-game substitution. You want to manage the media, but also you want to limit the amount of pressure that can be put. Now, with the home World Cup and all that, there's still going to be huge pressure, but you need to be able to limit the pressure on the players. You need to be able to limit the pressure, that the players are facing day in and day out. But overall, with the press conferences, I love the reference to Emma Hayes and the sort of quick, sort of open heart surgery that she did on the U.S. women's national team. The quick sort of open heart surgery she did on the U.S. women's national team. We need to do, that's what Pochettino's trying to look to do, and for him to reference her and sort of the success that she's had, and it's something that Pochettino is going to try to replicate, and is something that is going to look as a role model. With them, those are two, they're very similar in the fact that these are two well-proven club coaches, some of the top coaches in the club game, going into the international experience for a foreign country, for the U.S., with no international experience at all, managing an international team. There's some very parallel similarities between the two. So it'll be interesting to see if Pochettino can sort of replicate the success that Emma Hayes has had for the U.S. women's national team. Pochettino, he answered some of the questions in Spanish. Some questions were asked in Spanish. Some questions were asked in English as well. And we know, also I think that's really, with, Pochettino, yes, being a foreigner, but the amazing part is he does speak English because, obviously his days in the Premier League for Southampton, Tottenham. But overall, yeah, I thought it was a very good press conference. But at the end of the day, now we need to see some improvement in October and going forward, as he has, I believe, 10 international windows till the World Cup. It's time to get some work done. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will preview the North London derby as Arsenal visit Tottenham on Sunday.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Mauricio Pochettino's opening press conference for the USMNT. We move on to preview the North London derby as Arsenal visit Tottenham on Sunday. It's going to be a very, very good game between two teams that have different sort of expectations in terms of what they're battling for this season, obviously. But we know North London derby, the rivalry there. In my opinion, probably the most fierce rivalry In Premier League, I know Liverpool Everton is up there. Liverpool United to an extent, even though it's more one-sided. The hate that United have for Liverpool, in my opinion, is far greater than the hate that Liverpool have for United. I do think that the Liverpool Everton though is like a fierce rivalry on both sides. They both hate each other. So the Goodison rival or the Merseyside derby, that's their North London derby though. I mean, these two teams hate each other. The fan bases hate each other. It's just pure animosity from minute one. There's no brotherhood there when it comes to Tottenham and Arsenal. It really is the definition of a derby there. And Arsenal, they have some issues with Odegaard. Issue. He was injured against Austria in international duty. The ankle injury, that's a rough injury for Arteta to deal with, because you're also dealing with Declan Rice with the red card that he suffered against Brighton, and then Calafiori also suffered an injury while away with Italy. He was hurt when Ousmane Dembele actually caught him on the back of the leg with the studs in that game that Italy really impressed when they defeated France. And then Odegaard, he had to come off in the win against Austria. They actually, they pictured him going on his way back to England, and he was in crutches. There's no ligament damage. I believe the X-ray did come back negative. But it's gonna be, it's gonna keep him out for this game and probably for the future era as well. Now, Arteta did not confirm Odegaard and Calafiori being absent for the game. He said the club's medical teams are still evaluating both players and waiting on more tests. But they're gonna, at least for Odegaard, I really think he's gonna miss the North London derby. Those ankle injuries are really tricky. And the fact that he had to wear crutches means he can't really put that much weight on it. And we know those sort of ones, they're just really tricky to deal with. And those are, weeks at least sort of injuries there. So, yeah, I don't see it. I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship by Mikel Arteta, not announcing that he'll be out. Which will probably force him to play Jorginho will probably come in for Declan Rice. And then Kai Havertz is gonna drop into the midfield as an 8, and Arsenal are gonna introduce Gabriel Jesus to play up top there. I think that's the most likely outcome on how Arteta decides to go with it. You don't really have that sort of creative attacking midfielder apart from Odegaard. That's something that Arsenal don't really have on the bench. And it puts Arsenal in a tricky position because you do lack creativity there. With Martinelli and Saka, they're good, direct sort of wingers, but I don't really look at them as creative players. There, and that can you're kind of like creativity, with that midfield, in my opinion. Jorginho, he can play a ball in, but he's not a really line. He can play some line breaking balls from deep positions, but he's not someone that can really be, creative going, in the attacking side of the pitch, which means, and they don't really get much, creativity from Ben White, now I think this, with Odegaard being out, I think you can look at a possibility of Zinchenko playing the left-hand side, because he does have the ability to play some balls, to be able to, provide a little bit of something going forward in terms of in the creativity department. I do think this opens up a slot for Zinchenko to get in there. Also, with the fact that Calafiori is going to be out, it'll be interesting to see who Mikel Arteta puts on the left-hand side. The other option is Julian Timber, but again, with Timber and Ben White, which are sort of hybrid center-back fullbacks, you don't get the creativity really there. And with Odegaard being out, you'd need a little bit of creativity coming from your fullbacks as well. So yeah, I do think Zinchenko will get reintroduced there as well. Now, as far as Tottenham have had the issues that they've had for a long while now. Not long while, but for this so far this season is they played three, in my opinion, they played three excellent games. They controlled possession in all games really, really well. They created a numerous amount of opportunities in all games really, really well. And they played overall good attacking intent football. The big issues that they had is they did not take advantage of the amount of opportunities they created. They did not get the ball into the back of the net. In the opening game against, besides the Everton game, as obviously where they won 4-0, the opening game, they completely dominate the game in the first half. Really should be up 3-4-0. Just complete another dominance. They're only able to get one goal in. And Leicester with, one opportunity out of the blue in the 55th minute take advantage of Jamie Vardy, and it just kind of collapsed for Tottenham, and it took them a little longer while to get back their foot into the game. And then against Newcastle in their third game, they lose 2-1. They dominate throughout the entire game. Both goals come against the run of play because they don't take advantage of their opportunity. And defensively, specifically talking about that second goal, they get they create so many opportunities, they don't take advantage, and then it takes one break to catch out their really, really, really high line that they deploy, and boom, they get taken advantage of just like that, and then it's 2-1 against the run of play. And with the way that they don't take advantage of their opportunities, and then also with the fact that they play really, really high and they're very, very open, it makes them susceptible to, them getting caught out on the run of play, because, they don't take advantage of the opportunities when they come, and the few opportunities that, a team can get past their wave of initial pressure, be able to hit that ball over the top, then they look completely vulnerable because they're asked to play very, very high. They also didn't have Van de Ven in that Newcastle game, which Van de Ven's important to this team because of the pace that he has in the back line. Now Van de Ven, and then also another issue. Van de Ven. Let's go back to Van de Ven. He actually did not travel for Netherlands in the international break because of hurting his knee in that Everton match, and he should be fit for this game after missing that game against Newcastle, which will be a big addition because with the way how high Tottenham play, is very, very important for them to have the pace of Van de Ven in case they do play that ball over the top. He does have the recovery pace to sort of bail Tottenham out of jail. That opening game that they played against Leicester City, Solanke played. He was their new striker, the guy that came in. He scored 20 plus goals last season, or I believe he scored. Let's pull up the stats exactly. No, he scored 19 goals last season in the Premier League. Had a really, really good season. 27 years old. He was the guy to come in for Tottenham, to be that number 9, to be that goal scorer, to take advantage of all these opportunities being created. That opening day wasn't horrible, but wasn't great. Had a few chances that he maybe could have done better on, but nothing horrible. And then he suffered that injury and wasn't available in that Newcastle game, in which they created so many chances, so many opportunities, but there was no one to put it away, and they weren't clinical, the players that were there. Now with Solanke, being back, I believe he's back. I heard he was back. Hold on, because this is telling me he's injured. Okay, so Spurs boss Postecoglou saying Solanke could feature in Sunday's squad. He said Dom is back with the first team training today. So again, we've got training tomorrow. If he gets through all right, I guess he'll be available. Which is I'm assuming he should be available. But if he is, that's big news for Tottenham, because they'll have that guy that they brought in to fix this issue of not being able to get the goals, to take advantage. And the other guys have to be more clinical too. Son, Madison, Kulishevsky, they need to take advantage when they get the opportunities too. But when you have a guy like Solanke, it'll open up space for the other guys to find other spaces, and Solanke will be able to, take advantage of opportunities on set pieces, because he is sort of a big frame too. And what a moment will it be for him to have his first big moment for Tottenham in the North London derby at home against Arsenal. That's the perfect way to sort of announce your Tottenham career, and that would be a very, very special moment. So, I'm very looking forward to that. Right now, I'm really stuck on this game. With North London derbies is really, really hard to call. But I think with the lack of creativity, with Odegaard being out, as well with as well with Tottenham in the way that they play, how good they've been this season, and the fact that Solanke is coming back to fix that I assume can fix the issue of them not being able to get the ball in the back of the net. And with the fact that it is a North London derby at home for Tottenham, I'm going to give the slight edge to Tottenham. And I think they'll pull out a point, maybe even get the victory here, which, that'd be a bad result for Arsenal. 2 games in a row, drop points. For me, this is a massive, massive, massive game for Arsenal. Even if it's this early in the season, when you're battling against a team like Manchester City, every game matters, and you can't drop points in 2 games in a row. You just can't do it. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll do a full Premier League Match Day 4 preview.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed the North London derby. We move on to do a sort of full Premier League match day preview. A lot of games happening this week. Was the international break now over, the Premier League coming back. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about all the games, besides obviously the North London derby. So Southampton taking on Manchester United. Southampton haven't had a single point this season. This game is, by the way, is going to be played. This game is going to be played at St. Mary's Stadium at Southampton's pitch. Obviously, Southampton are sort of in a desperate position now, playing a home game after not gaining a single point so far this season. And 3 games, 3 losses is a pretty bad start, and the performances have been pretty poor as well. They're coming in a game, a sense of desperation to get your first points, to get your season kicked off. Now United are in a different level of desperation to get a result in this game, with only 3 points in out of the first 9. They've been really poor this season up to this point. We know the pressure that's on Erik ten Hag after barely surviving this past season, and barely surviving with the basis of keeping his job. They were okay against Fulham. They were pretty poor against Brighton, especially in that second half, and then against Liverpool they were torn apart to pieces. This is really a big game, and anything less than 3 points for Manchester United will be a failure behind comprehension. Really would be. City take on Brentford. You know, City has made every team so far this season look pedestrian. West Ham, Ipswich, Chelsea, they've all made them look like pedestrian, weak teams, and they look stronger than they looked last season. And they're just dominant. Erling Haaland looks like a machine. 7 goals in 3 games. Gundogan also getting back in the mix as well. Rodri, and the great thing about Manchester City is that a lot of these sort of players that they've been playing, especially in the first 2 games, a lot of their key players have not playing. A lot of the players that made deep runs in the European Championship, like a Rodri, like a Phil Foden, Rodri, Phil Foden, they weren't involved. They did not, Rodri, Phil Foden, John Stones, Kyle Walker, John Stones, Kyle Walker, Phil Foden, Rodri. These are all key players for Manchester City. They were not involved in their opening 2 games, or they made Chelsea and Ipswich Town look like little fools. Literally like fools. No, these players, actually, John Stones, Rodri, Kyle Walker, Phil Foden, they were not involved so far in any of the games that City have played up to this point in this season. They weren't involved against West Ham as well. They weren't involved against Chelsea. They weren't involved against Ipswich, and some of the players made appearances off the bench, but mostly Pep Guardiola had a chance to rest them. It just shows the quality and depth that they have, and it's really not fair. Brentford, they were sort of gifted 3 points against Southampton, to be honest, with the goals that Southampton conceded, and then to be honest, against City, let's be realistic. City's gonna dominate the game. They're gonna make them look like, a championship team, like they made the rest of these teams in the Premier League so far. And now I fully expect Pep Guardiola to reintegrate Rodri, Phil Foden, Kyle Walker, John Stones all back into the starting 11. I think the rest time is now over. I think his plan was to sort of let them have to the international break to to sort of preserve them so they can make this long season run. But yeah, now they'll get back into there. Fulham take on West Ham. Fulham have had so far a good start to the season. They played Ipswich and Leicester, which are newly promoted sides. Against United, they kind of lost the games because of their stuff. They had multiple opportunities in that second half in transition to take advantage. They couldn't take advantage. They couldn't get that final ball right, with 3-on-1s, 2-on-1s, and all that. But overall, they've looked decent. West Ham, they had that bad game against City, and then they've had a rough start to the season. The fact that they're playing City and then Villa away, or City and not Villa away, but City and Villa. That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. 2 out of 3 games to have opening up. Those are 2 teams that were in the top 4 last season. They were able to defeat Crystal Palace though. At Selhurst Park, which is a good win for them now with the new manager. I feel like they're gonna continue their success in. They're gonna not continue their success, but they're gonna get back to success in this game, and I think they will pull it out against Fulham. Liverpool take on Nottingham Forest. Liverpool under Arne Slot, they've looked as great as they did with Jurgen Klopp last season at Liverpool. They haven't conceded any goals so far, and they played against a newly promoted team in Ipswich Town. First game away at Ipswich Town, playing their first home Premier League game in 20 plus years now. So tricky thing to do. Then they defeated Brentford at home. Showed some good quality football there. Showed in all 3 games showed different sort of patterns of play, which they've been really, really flexible in the way that they go about it, which is also even more impressive. And then against their rival Manchester United, or one of their rivals in Manchester United at Old Trafford, they just completely went in there and they dominated that game. Nottingham Forest, they haven't lost a game this season up to this point. When I'm talking about in the Premier League, they haven't lost any of the 3 games. They finished with two draws against Bournemouth and Wolves, and then they defeated Southampton as well with the late goals from Gibbs White. And 5 points in the first 3 games is a decent start for a Nottingham Forest team that I believe I predicted them to get relegated before the season. Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, they've shown some quality. They've caused some issues to the back line. But overall here, I just think taking on a team like Liverpool, I think Nottingham Forest will find themselves a little bit out of their depth. And also it's the fact that it's at Anfield. I think Liverpool will get it done. Brighton take on Ipswich Town. Brighton, under Fabian Huddersler, who I didn't know much about, in the fact that he hasn't really managed at the highest level. They looked really, really good. They benefited last week from Declan Rice's red card. They really could have won that game, but they got the draw. And then they've won they also defeated Manchester United as well. And then they had their opening day win over Everton away. They did it in comfortable fashion. They won that game 3-0, played really, really well. You have Everton away, then you play United and Arsenal, and you get 7 points out of your first 3 games. That's a beyond excellent start to their season. And then Ipswich, they had, rough 2 games going up against Liverpool and City, but they got their first points. With that draw or against Fulham, getting that point. And but I think overall Brighton's quality in the way that they play, they're just gonna take advantage of them. I do think that. We gotta go through this rest of these quickly as time is running out here. Crystal Palace take on Leicester. Crystal Palace, they earned their first point of the season against Chelsea. They only have 1 point, and they've been okay this season. Even in their 2 losses, I didn't think they were really bad, and they got completely outplayed or out dominated. And then Leicester as well. They haven't been great. I think Steve Cooper's tactics have not helped them as well. But overall, their performances so far this season has not been good enough up to this point. I think Crystal Palace gets their first win of the season here. Aston Villa take on Everton. Villa, against Leicester, didn't create much big chances, but they were able to get the victory. And then they had that the disappointing result against Arsenal at home, which they didn't play bad, Villa, but they couldn't take advantage of the opportunities while Arsenal did. And then Villa went the first game of the season. Villa had a good result going away to West Ham. And now Villa also has a midweek game that they're gonna have to prepare for as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Unai Emery mix and match. Everton, they've been horrible this season, completely horrible this season. They had their opening day really bad loss to Brighton at home, getting dominated. They also got completely dominated by Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And then on top of that, they conceded a 2-0 lead. They bottled a 2-0 lead they had a 2-0 lead in the 87th minute. They moved on to get 0 points from that game against Bournemouth. This is a team that's complete shambles. There's huge pressure now. They're going to be built on Sean Dyche. This is Aston Villa's for the taking. They're gonna dominate this game. Bournemouth take on Chelsea. We talked about Bournemouth, how they were able to come back against Everton. Chelsea, they finished with 4 points in the first 7. We really still trying to figure out exactly what this Chelsea team is. What this Chelsea team with, but with this game being at Bournemouth, and I do think Bournemouth have some quality and play some good football at home. I do think Chelsea could find themselves in trouble, and I'm gonna slightly favor Bournemouth in this game. Wolves take on Newcastle. Wolves, Defensively, they've been pretty confusing so far. They had that really bad game against Chelsea, against Nottingham Forest. They were defensively better, obviously going up against a team with less quality. And then that opening day, they lost to Arsenal away, which is sort of expected. Newcastle's, they've been really good start to the season. They picked up 7 points from a 9, despite going down early with the red card early against Southampton. They were able to pull that out. And then they had that a really good win over Tottenham, sort of playing in transition, defending really well and playing in transition. I do think Newcastle will take advantage of Wolves here. I think just Wolves are going to be far too open defensively like we saw against Chelsea, and Newcastle will take advantage there. And that's our full Premier League Matchday 4 preview. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to goals way too early 2026 World Cup power ranking.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed, we did like a Premier League Matchday preview of Matchday 4. We react to goals way too early 2026 World Cup power ranking. If you don't know, Goal is a publication on the internet, goal.com, and they Goal rank the favorites for the World Cup 2026 a little bit early on post this international break, and it was an interesting list. Oh, where do we start off? Should we start off from bottom to top or top to bottom? Okay, let's just read it out real quick. So Argentina 1, Spain 2, England 3, Germany 4, Colombia 5, Netherlands 6, Portugal 7, Italy 8, France 9, Brazil 10, Uruguay 11, Belgium 12, Croatia 13, Canada 14, Mexico 15, United States 16. Okay, my first big takeaway now, get Mexico out of there. Mexico has no business being anywhere near this list. Top 6. Okay, no. Yes, they're though, they have Canada 13, Canada 14, Mexico 15, US 16. Okay, but how is Mexico 15 and the US is 16? They both had a poor Copa Americas, but if you're talking about recent, success, United States has had much more success than Mexico. And then they're just a better team overall than Mexico. Mexico is putrid. What, in the U.S., they don't have an excuse, but they did suffer that red card against Panama. That really is one of the main reasons why they didn't get out. Mexico, they couldn't get out of their groove because they're just not good enough. Get Mexico out of there. They're putrid. The talent levels is nowhere near the talent levels that should be of a Mexico team, especially if they're looking to compete. And yeah, they've been atrocious. Now, Javier Aguirre coming back, he's an international manager with experience, but the U.S. brought in Mauricio Pochettino, and the U.S. has more, Pochettino has much more quality to work with than Javier Aguirre is going to have managing this Mexican national team. Now, I'm talking about these top 16, but, I'm trying to think of some international teams missing in here, Let's see, they got the South Americans, the main South American teams, the Argentinians, Wait a minute. Did I read? Did I? Yeah, okay. They have the Argentina, they have the Uruguay, they have the Colombia, Brazil. So I think out of the South American teams, the legit ones that really should be in this list, I believe they got the Brazil, they got the Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay. Okay, Ecuador could sniff into this list. I'll definitely put Ecuador ahead of Mexico though, for sure. In fact, Ecuador, they got past in the group. They got past Mexico. Even Mexico being the home team, just the quality, I think I'm gonna put Ecuador in there ahead. But that's amongst the that's just South American teams. Now, Switzerland. I think Switzerland should definitely be in this list. I think Switzerland. I'll put the. You know what? I'll boot out Canada and Mexico. I'll keep the U.S. in there because of Pochettino coming in. I think they have more quality than the Canada and in Mexico. So their talent level is, their ceiling is higher now with Pochettino coming in. I expect immediate success with the U.S. with Pochettino coming in, and I think their quality. So I'm gonna put them ahead of Mexico and Canada there. I don't agree with that, but I will. I think Switzerland should be ahead of the U.S. I think Switzerland had a really, really good European Championship. They should play some really, really quality ball there. Yeah, I think, the one European team that wasn't in there that I think should be in there is Switzerland. Switzerland should definitely be in that list, and they should definitely be, in my opinion, over. They should be over Canada. They should be over Mexico, and they should be over Belgium as well. Belgium should, if they're gonna be in this list, they should be at the bottom of the list. We saw how how poor they were this window, especially against France. Kevin De Bruyne, the frustrations that he's had. This is a team that's a little bit falling apart now as well. They just don't have the quality that they had before. It's just not good enough. They still have some good young players like a Jeremy Doku, a Johan Bakayoko, but overall the quality is not what it was. So I'll bring them below Croatia, below Switzerland. I think there in the U.S. it's kind of 50-50. I'd put maybe U.S. Yeah, I'll put the Belgium ahead of you slightly. U.S. I think U.S. would be 16 there. No, not 16. I think the U.S. will be U.S. would be 15. Canada will be 16. I'll boot Mexico out of there. U.S. would be 15. Canada would be 16. Canada 16, US 15. Then you can put Belgium there, and then I'd have 13. Then Croatia there, 12 ahead of them. And then apart the rest of the list, Uruguay, Brazil. I think France is a little bit low. I think they showed a little bit good signs in there. I do think Italy is on the rise. I think 8 is too much. Italy were completely embarrassed by Switzerland. And I think it's disrespectful almost me having Switzerland 12, 13 and Italy at 8. Switzerland dominated Italy. So I'm going to move up Switzerland up the list and drop Italy a few spots below France and below Brazil. And below Uruguay, honestly. Portugal, they're too high. I'll drop them below France as well. Portugal, they're just, they're the same old Portugal in every international tournament. They're going to disappoint. That's just what it is. I think Netherlands, they had a good run going to the semifinal, but are they legit contenders for this? I don't know. I'd drop Netherlands as well. Look, Brazil, they've been poor and all that, but they always seem to, get it done and, to field a really, really good team in the World Cup, a team that has the quality to compete. They always, despite, they've had poor Copa Americas before, this one, the 2016 one, but when the World Cup comes, the players are playing better, there's more ability there, they're able to get the team together in a really contending team that's, really scary and that can really battle there. So I'd be wary of putting Brazil too low. I'd probably raise them up to the list, and they also have the Brazil culture to them, and also the big thing, Neymar coming back. So I will move Brazil up the list. They'll definitely should be ahead of Italy, Portugal, Netherlands, and I think 6 is a good spot for them with with room to go forward as they progress with Neymar coming back and all that. But I do think the top 5 is sort of set. No, England dropped them. England, why is England that 3? Drop England below Brazil. Even when Brazil is at its lowest, they went into Wembley and beat England. Drop England. I think they should be right with the Portugals and the Frances. They should be in that mix. I think you move Brazil ahead and you put Brazil, in my opinion, you put them at 5th actually. But I think these top 4 teams are deserved top 4 teams. Right now, Colombia 4th. Germany 4th, Colombia 3rd. They're both playing really, really good football. Colombia, they don't have the quality of the likes of some of the teams below them and definitely some of the teams above them. But under Nestor Lorenzo, they're playing really, really good football. They reached the final of the Copa America. James Rodriguez is getting assists, being that sort of creative player, but he doesn't have the sort of not the work rate, but doesn't have the energy to get around with his older age, and he was never really doing that. But he has players around him that will do all the dirty work. There's athleticism in that team as well. There's quality. They have pace. They have ability with Luis Diaz. They got players playing, better than the sum of their parts because of Nestor Lorenzo and how he is tactically brilliant and puts these guys in positions to succeed. They take advantage of opportunities and set pieces as well. Really good football team and a legit contender in a team. If you're like a France, if you're Spain, if you're Brazil, if you're Germany, you would fear to play them. Germany as well, they're on the rise as well after this European Championship, playing really good football. I think they were the second best team in the European Championship. They just got unlucky that they played Spain. I ought to be wary for Germany too. Huge quality. Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala. Huge ability amongst the team. They have youth talent as well. You have Joshua Kimmich stepping into a leadership role now, being captain. There's huge ability. But there's a lot of players that have recently retired. So there's going to be new, influx there. And there's going to be new leadership needed with Emmanuel Neuer, Thomas Muller, Ilkay Gundogan, Toni Kroos. There's been plenty of German international experienced players retiring. So this new sort of generation is going to have to step up into leadership positions. But what Nagelsmann has been able to do so far has been very, very successful. And I think they're only going to continue to improve entering that World Cup. And the top 2 teams, in my opinion, I think they got it perfectly right. Spain 2, Argentina 1. I'll do Spain. They're a brilliant team. They played really, really good football. They have a good combination of tiki-taka and also being direct. They got young players like Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, Pedri, all these sort of players that are only going to get better, that are only going to get more cohesive. They have a very, very dominant team. Rodri controlling the wheel as well. Huge quality there. They're defensively solid as well. They don't concede much. But I won't put them ahead of Argentina because, Argentina have that sort of grit, determination. They also have a good balance of quality as well. They have the best international manager in the world that gets this team playing perfectly, that puts them in positions to succeed. They're just, right now, you just can't put a team ahead of them. Now, obviously, looking at it from Spain is the better team. They play the better football and they're just more, I guess, better on the eye than Argentina. But Argentina are winners. They have that winning mentality. They have a winning culture amongst this current team. And they're the last 3 international tournaments they've played. They've won them all, 2 Copa Americas and 1 World Cup. So until a team topples them, I can't put them anywhere below 1. They have to be number 1. And it'll be very interesting because we will see this game, the Finalissima, being played. There was talks that, Barcelona wanted to host this. Don't think it should be in UEFA in Europe again. I believe the Finalissima, if it's going to be a regular thing between the European Championship and the CONMEBOL winner, it should be rotated where it is. One time it should be in Europe, one time it should be in South America. In my opinion, that is the fair way to go about it. But I'm not deciding that right there. But overall with the list is not. I just think that some of the egregious things. England is ridiculously too high, being at number 3. They always disappoint in international tournaments. We know the case with them, and they don't even have a manager right now. And if you put in Lee Carsley in there, it's just it's the same sort of similar hire as when they hired Gareth Southgate. I don't agree with that at all. If they were to do that, I think France are a little low on this list as well, despite the poor European Championship they had. Mexico should be nowhere near sniffing this list. I'd have a few African teams ahead of Mexico. A team like Senegal, I'd have them ahead of Mexico. A team like Ivory Coast, who's coming off African Cup of Nations, who have some real quality in the team as well. Mexico, they're a poor team. I'd definitely have Japan actually in this list. I totally forgot about the Asian teams. The main team is Japan. You take out the Japan will jump, Canada in this list. Japan would jump United States in this list. Japan would jump Belgium in this list. Japan will be around the 12, 13 teams as well. Japan is also getting disrespected. They should be in this list as well. It's a hard thing to do because there's so many confederations to break down, but we took a lot of time, and I can go on and on about international football. But show break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed goals way too early 2026 World Cup power rankings. We move on to react to some of the top soccer headlines going on in the soccer world. Honestly, there's not much going on with the international break coming tomorrow. But I didn't report much about Depay going to Corinthians. Depay, he signed for Corinthians after leaving Atletico Madrid. Obviously, Ronald Koeman, he had the issue with the regarding Koeman, the Uruguayan, going to Saudi, and he was really strong on that, and he got criticized. But when it came to the Depay, he wasn't as critical. But, he didn't really say much. He said, what Koeman told reporters, he said, "I disapprove of Steven Bergwijn's move to Saudi. With Memphis, it can be different. The level of the league in Brazil is different. So yes, he can still be part of the national team, but it depends on the fitness and if he reaches his level." Depay, he scored 46 goals in 98 international appearances. He was actually not part of Koeman's current squad, which is probably reasonable in the fact that he is making this move to Brazil right now. He did it recently, so maybe this kind of allowed him to do that. But yes, when Depay when he was discussing this new move at his opening announcements, he said, "This is bigger than football. A lot of stars come from Brazil, big football players. It is the mecca of football. Kids in Europe look up to Brazil in the way you play and embrace life. It is a great moment to bridge the gap to the other side of the world. We always come to take the Brazilian talents to Europe because they have something special. This league needs a light from the other side." When he's spoken about continuing to play for the national team, when he was asked about that, he said, "I need to have my rhythm back." The coach will investigate this league and find out if it's a competitive one. on the other side of the world, when he's and also Depay, when he was talking about coming to Brazil, he said he received advice from some of his Brazilian friends, like Neymar, Vinicius Jr., and he said on the other side of the world they don't know all this, they just follow European clubs. It is the time that they see. It is time that they see. Brazilians have something special. I think the league will shine to the other side of the world. It is time to show its potential, and I think it will happen in the next few years. It is a decision that is moved by a lot of force behind it. It goes beyond my understanding. I cannot express how I feel now. And he also basically, also said, this sort of move will allow other European players to follow him to Brazilian soccer. And I do say I want to see more Europeans, sort of play in South America as well. Because South America historically has had a league with such prestige and honor, specifically like the Brazilian league. It's a league, and they've done, especially in the past, they've done really, really well. Teams from the Brazilian league in the Club World Cup. I believe Corinthians actually they won one. They beat Chelsea. United, they lost to Vasco da Gama. The Gary Neville game. The Gary Neville game where he made those mistakes. And I think that was the 2000 Club World Cup. Yeah, I think it's good that this is happening again. You want to spread, you want to learn the culture on the other side. You want all this, you want football to bridge the gap. Another thing is, with games, like I've been saying for a few times now over these past couple times, you want to bridge that gap. You can't make finalism a constant competition in Europe. This is a game between the best European team and the best South American team. You play these sort of games, the team that won the Euros and the team that won the Copa America, you want to have one in Europe, and then you rotate it to South America. If you're really serious about bridging the gap, it should not just be in Europe. That is completely and ridiculously not fair. So yeah, that is my opinion on that move. Some other things that happened, obviously we discussed this. Pochettino, he had his opening day press conference. Ten Hag, recently when he was speaking, he said that he conceded the fact that he needs to start winning if he's going to retain the faith of the club's leadership. Ahead of the trip that they had to Southampton, Ten Hag said in a news conference, in football you have to win, you have to deliver. That's clear. It's good that the new leadership acknowledges this and says this. We are working together to be more successful. We have higher targets than we already achieved. It's now he's dealing with the situation with De Ligt being substituted at a halftime of the Netherlands 2-2 draw with Germany, and then afterwards Ronald Koeman saying he needs to be protected after making that mistake. When Ten Hag was saying, he said, I think he said it in reference to the Dutch squad, not a club situation. I know Matt, and he's a great personality. His character, he will overcome this and will bounce back in the situation with the Dutch squad. Definitely not his club situation. I'm not afraid for this situation. I know his qualities, I know his personality, and I know he'll fight back. The other thing is he has had a very difficult preseason because he didn't play games. Only game from the start was last game against Liverpool. Without this, he goes and starts for the Dutch squad, and he's not in rhythm yet or up to full speed. But when he is with you, we will see his qualities and the different player. This was this interesting one. AC Milan and Inter, they ditched the San Siro revamp, and they revived their plan for a new stadium. They both rejected a plan to renovate the current San Siro stadium. But they received proposals to build a new joint stadium in the same area. That was what Mayor Giuseppe Sala said on Friday. Salah when he was Giuseppe Salah, when he was discussing, he said after an in-depth analysis, the club concluded that the San Siro stadium cannot be revamped in an affordable way. They don't think it's feasible. They have put forward the idea of going back to a new stadium in the San Siro area. You know, that's actually sad because San Siro has a lot of prestige, a lot of, aura when it comes to that stadium. There's a lot of history when it comes to the San Siro stadium as well. And, it's disappointing to see, that stadium sort of get ditched almost. But thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for more content updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of